see. I wanna smile again before I'm gone. Can we get back to where we used to be? Do we all feel the same? It's just a dream. Can we all
Ladies and gentlemen, live from the West Bank of the Flats, it's Cleveland Sports 360 with your host, LG. Tonight, LG's guests are no other than Kip Watson. Also, my man, Anthony Dorsett, former NFL player, and also sports agent Mook Williams of Neurosports. Everybody, sit tight, relax, because you know it's the man you love to hate. It's your boy LG live with Cleveland Sports 360. LG, it's your time, baby.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Our special guest tonight, talking brain codes all the way from Texas, the unbelievably talented Kip Watson, joining us live on the phone. Now, Kip is a licensed professional counselor and certified training. By no means should you take this as medical advice, should you take this as a counseling session, or should you use it but anything as a learning experience. Without further ado, we're going to go to our Rush for a Cause phone lines and talk to Kip Watson, owner of Neurosport. Kip, are you with us?
Hey, Larry. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. You know, Kip, I put out a lot of publicity about the show tonight, and we talked to a lot of people around the city of Cleveland and basically all over the surrounding counties. And first of all, can you hear me all right tonight, Kip?
You're kind of going in and out, and it's kind of low on the volume, but I can hear you pretty good.
Okay, kick me up a little bit, Kenyon. Is that a little bit better, Kip?
It's about the same.
A little bit higher, Kenyon.
We'll make it work.
All the way from Texas. It takes a lot to get this voice all the way down there. So anyways, Kip, I was saying we asked a lot of questions. Does Colt McCoy have the proper brain code to quarterback the Cleveland Browns and turn the team into a winner? Now, I know I caught you off guard about a couple of days ago when we talked about you didn't really have a great chance to assess Colt McCoy. Have you taken a look at any of Colt McCoy's attributes, Kip, and can you make any kind of determination from what you know if Colt McCoy is the kind of guy that has the proper brain code to be a winning quarterback for the Cleveland Browns?
Well, the very short one-word answer is yes. The more longer version answer to that question is I believe Colt, I have not assessed him personally, but based on what I do know about brain coding, I believe Colt has one of the best brain codes that fits as an NFL quarterback. 5 brain codes typically do well at that level, and I believe he has one of them, but I don't believe he has the best one. But after doing some research, after you threw that out at me, I'll have to tell you, this was very interesting to me that a majority of the rosters today in the NFL actually are being led by this particular brain code that Colt McCoy has. Now, the key to making it work, obviously, he's your leader, but you've got to build a team around your leader's strengths, and that's a big part of it.
Now, Kip, before we go on further with Colt McCoy, tell us a little bit about Neurosport and exactly what you do, because there's quite a bit of science behind this, and a lot of our viewers may not be that familiar with this. But give us a little background in how Neurosport works and how you have professional agents representing guys in the draft, and exactly what do you do for them?
Okay, well, Neurosport is a company, actually, that was born out of a friendship with an NFL running back, and he and I trained together back when I was playing football myself, and I had done this type of brain coding when I worked in a chemical dependency outpatient unit. I worked a lot with addicts and eating disorders and their families, and so I used it in that context to help people recover and help families recover from the effects of addiction and really collaborate better as a family as they moved forward. And so I took this particular science, which is using the Myers-Briggs type indicator, along with some neuroscience. Well, what does that mean? That's kind of like what we know about activities in the brain, where that brain activity happens, and combine those two sciences and apply it to sports performance. There's been one other guy that really made this fairly well known. His name is Jonathan Neednagel. And so I've kind of taken up where he left off. He kind of began this science back in the early 90s after we now know more about neuroscience and activity in the brain. So how I help athletes really is taking this science, utilizing the MBTI, and we can actually pinpoint innate strengths, preferences, and weaknesses of an athlete. This helps improve psychological edge on the competition. It's that intangible that a lot of scouts and coaches and agents are looking for. They do a great job, the scouts do a great job at assessing physical ability, but what about some of those intangibles that go with it? So I like to say I'm sort of a sports investment advisor, I guess you could say.
So
whether you're a parent or an agent or a scout or a coach, it just gives you some very specific, I like to say, roadmap of how an individual is wired physically and mentally.
So different organizations have enlisted your talents to make these assessments, and first say the NFL draft's coming up in about 19 days from now, give or take a few days, the 26th of April. Now, you're probably busy this time of the year. Different organizations probably enlisted you, and Anthony Dorsett Jr. works with you at Neurosport as well. He'll be joining us a little bit later this evening, folks. You've used these talents
He's training an athlete, and he'll hop on here pretty soon.
Yeah, but you've been using these assessments to help different facilities, different teams, different people assess different athletes, and maybe even to the point who they should pick in an NFL draft. Does that sound about right, Kip?
Yes, that is true. I've worked with agents. I've consulted with scouts, coaches, and parents alike because I like to say it really doesn't matter what your brain code is. Once we know what it is, then we can go to work training specifically to enhance those strengths and develop any weaknesses depending on what sport you're playing and even what position within a sport. So like in football, for example, quarterback requires a certain skill set mentally and physically that's quite different, say, from a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman.
Well, let's touch on
different mental strengths that make them superior in those types of positions.
Let's touch on the quarterback for 1 second, Kip. Some interesting conversations you and I had. We talked briefly about a guy like Peyton Manning, for instance. Now, you're able to take a look at Peyton Manning and tell us pretty much what his brain code tells you. Is that correct?
Yeah, Peyton Manning, say he's the poster child for the best brain code for an NFL.
He probably likes breasts, too.
The same brain code as some of the greats you can think of. Joe Namath, Ken Stabler, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana, Dan Marino, John Elway, Brett Favre. And they're all that same brain code. Michael Vick is that same brain code.
Now, where is Colt McCoy? Where is Colt McCoy when you? Where is Colt McCoy? Does he possess any of those?
That is the quintessential brain code for being able to perform most consistently under the highest pressure.
How about Colt McCoy? Does he possess any of the same kind of brain code some of the guys you just mentioned? Tell us where the difference is there, Kip.
Okay. The difference with Colt McCoy, and actually as I was doing some research in preparation for today, what I found was actually a lot of the current quarterbacks share his brain code. Kyle Orton, Chad Pennington, Cam Newton, Matt Hasselbeck, Joey Harrington, Russ Grossman, Rich Cannon, Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton, Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan, Mark Sanchez, Sam Bradford. They have what I believe is it's not the best brain code, but it's one of the best. And where they differ is in how they take in information. So I think where you see some of those types of quarterbacks get tripped up is in some of their visual awareness. In other words, they're taking in information where they can see what could be rather than seeing what is. And so in order for them to really excel, they've got to keep that difference there. Under pressure, they can lose that spatial awareness, that spatial ability. So they end up more than likely making more interceptions than, say, a Peyton Manning's brain code type.
Well, when you mentioned Colt McCoy's name and you said he shared a lot of the same brain code as a lot of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL today, the list that you mentioned had a lot of winners on it. So basically, Colt McCoy can be a winner.
There's 5, I believe, that can do well at that fast-paced elite level. So obviously, given all those names I rattled off, I think that obviously they can get the job done. Is it the best when we take a look at what's required for an NFL quarterback? It's not the best brain code, but it's definitely one of the best, and you certainly can have a winner if you have someone on your roster with that brain code. But I definitely think you're playing at a disadvantage if you don't have like a Peyton Manning's brain code on your roster.
Well, obviously, there's not too many Peyton Mannings floating around, or everybody would like to have one.
Well, we really know why his brain code is so
exactly.
great. Well, Kip, we know why his brain code is so great. Do you see the size of his head?
Say that again, because I can barely hear you.
All right, I'll tell you this. Have you seen the size of Peyton's head? That's why his brain code is so great.
Oh. Well, those guys, I mean, you've heard all the stories about how he prepares and what kind of leader he is, and that's just very innate to his brain code. I mean, they are amazing athletes physically and mentally, and they excel, actually, at most positions in football. That particular brain code makes a great defensive back as well.
Now, speaking of defensive backs, Kip, a couple of days ago, some test results came out, the Wonderlic test concerning a DB coming up in this year's draft. And Colburn, I believe was his name. And some of the people were making a big deal out of that. Now, give us a little bit of your knowledge. What do you think about those test results, and what kind of bearing would that possibly have on drafting a guy like him?
Well, I'll just be flat out honest with you. The Wonderlic really has no bearing and it really doesn't matter what your score is. It is not a good predictor of success in the NFL, period.
Well, I know that, and you know that. I wanted you to share that, somebody with the knowledge that you have, share that with our viewers. Tell us why, Kip.
Well, research supports that notion, first of all. But secondly, the Wonderlic, I will say, it's a valid predictor of job performance in traditional employment settings, but let's face it, the NFL, football, that's really a non-traditional employment setting.
Obviously. So this guy whose score result was very low.
There's a relationship between a Wonderlic score and performance in the NFL.
So
it's a test. It's 50 questions. You have to do it in 12 minutes. That's 14 seconds per question.
So basically,
most elite NFL athletes are not wired to take a test like that.
Right. So basically, this guy can excel in the NFL to the highest level. That test has no bearing on how he'll perform whatsoever.
No. And you also have to take into consideration two things there. The Wonderlic really is more about intellectual, verbal, numerical intelligence. It's not about being able to sit there in the backfield or even behind the center and be able to read and react a lot of information that's in motion at one time. Totally different intellectual aptitudes.
Absolutely. So, Kip, who are you working with these days? Are you allowed to discuss any of that? I mean, what are you doing getting ready for this year's NFL draft? Are you allowed to bring any of that up?
Yeah, I've got, we'll be talking to Mook Williams. He's an NFL agent. I got a number of his guys that I've been working with, J.T. Thomas, Darian Weems. I've been working with Lennon Creer. He's a running back out of Louisiana Tech that really did well in his senior games, got a lot of notoriety there. Josh Portis, who played for Seattle last year, he's a quarterback, and he has one of the 5 best brain codes as a quarterback. And actually, I've been working with some Olympic developmental team athletes, and I got a gymnast now I'm currently working with, too, that's reaching the elite level. So it's not just football,
right?
Although we're heavily concentrated on that, given it's draft season.
Right. I know you're an all-around athletic person, and you have a gymnast background yourself, coming from Ohio State or something like that, right?
Yep.
And then you played some professional women's football.
2 sports that you can't do the rest of your life: gymnastics and football. But 2 of my biggest passions in life, definitely.
So, Kip, when you were talking about Peyton Manning, I saw you made some comparisons. You wanted to compare him to maybe Leaf. What were you going to bring up about Manning or Leaf?
Well, obviously, those 2 guys got, back when they were drafted, got a lot of notoriety. And the 2 of them, it was similar every year. You kind of have the 2 quarterbacks, which one's going to go first. And this year we've got Luck and we've got RG3. A lot of talk around both of those guys. So
Absolutely.
Back in the 98 draft, the overall first pick was between Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning, 2 very similarly skilled college quarterbacks. Manning ended up having a very long career and, got the coveted honor, and Leaf was selected second, and he received a 4-year contract. I think it was worth around $30 million. So, obviously, both of them were drafted high and got paid a lot of money without playing it down. And Leaf began to demonstrate poor performance on and off the field. And after 4 seasons of a lot of inconsistency, he ended his career. And obviously we know Peyton Manning's gone on to have a very incredible career, and like I said, poster child for really the best brain code there is. Where these 2 guys differed was on one mental process parameter. In other words, one aspect of that brain coding. We come up with a 4-letter code. And Leaf and Manning are different in one. But that difference was huge. It's key, especially in the fast-paced, elite-level type of sports performance in football. And Ryan Leaf's brain code is not typically found in the NFL, and certainly not typically found at that position. Now, could he play that position? Yeah, but he probably needed to do a lot of work to try to develop that particular weakness.
Now, that's an interesting point you brought up, especially going 1 and 2 in the draft, and you got a guy like Peyton Manning that just signed a $96 million contract with the Broncos. Let's talk about Andrew Luck and RG3. Do we see any differences in their brain codes compared to a Ryan Leaf and a Peyton Manning?
Well, I wish I don't have any data on them, and I have not, had the privilege to brain code either one of them. What I do know about Luck is I'm pretty sure he could be the same as Peyton Manning, just based on what I do know, but I can't guarantee that 100%. RG3, I really don't know. Haven't spent too much time looking at some of his stuff. I think I would probably say if I had to pick between the two, I'd go with Luck.
So if Jim Irsay's listening to the Cleveland Sports 360 show tonight, you heard it right there from Kip Watson at Neurosports to take Andrew Luck as the first pick in the NFL draft. I know there's a lot of concern if Irsay's going to change his mind and go with RG3 or not. So,
I think Luck will go first.
That's what people are predicting. But then I heard some rumblings coming out of Washington that they were considering taking Luck. So,
well, I think the thing, too, you have to remember with intangibles, these scouts are excellent at what they do in evaluating physical talent. The intangibles are harder. I can provide one aspect of those intangibles. In other words, does the guy have the mental makeup, or at least the potential in his mental makeup to perform what I'm asking him to do? But that doesn't, even what I do does not take into account, say, someone's, you can have a lot of experiential differences in your background that affect your innate wiring. Part of my assessment process does involve looking for any kind of psychopathology, addiction issues, mental illness issues. Those types of things do impact innate wiring. And the other thing, too, to remember is this doesn't necessarily take into account someone's moral development. And so moral development plus understanding your innate wiring really gives you two intangibles that are so important. Because a guy can have, for instance, Anthony and I were talking about this not too long ago. Tim Tebow and Ndamukong Suh have the same mental brain code, but perhaps they have a different moral value system that governs some of their actions and beliefs and the way they carry themselves.
Yeah, I would think there is a lot of difference there in the moral upbringing of these two different people. And I think when you talk about a Colt McCoy, I think his moral upbringing is probably a lot like Peyton Manning's moral upbringing of two very strong Christian guys. So, people that have a lot of faith and are good Christian followers, their moral upbringing has been totally different than, let's say, a happy-go-lucky party animal that gets a $30 million contract and goes out and impregnates a bunch of women and has kids in every city and is paying a ton of child support. But I'll tell you what, Kip, we're going to take a 2-minute break here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show, and we're going to come right back with Kip Wilson for more brain coding from Neurosport when we're back with the Cleveland Sports 360 show right here on StreamingSportsTalk.com.
All of these incidents, they're not coincidence. It's not a game of chance, baby. More like convenience, like what happenstance. Look at the evidence, you'll see. Proof that you just
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Joining us live all the way from Texas on the phone lines, we have Kip Watson from Neurosport. Kip is able to take apart the human brain and take a look inside of it and see how these athletes are wired and how they're going to perform in the NFL. Once again, I'd like to advise the viewers, this is not medical advice. Do not use it as so. Kip is licensed in Texas, and she'd like to keep it that way. She's a professional counselor as well as a certified trainer. Kip, are you still there with us?
Of course I am, Larry.
That's great. I'm glad to have you back on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Kip, before we went to break, in case some viewers are just tuning in, we were talking about how Colt McCoy's brain might be wired and if he can be a winner for the Cleveland Browns. We touched a little bit on Peyton Manning, and we touched a little bit about the guys you've been working with. Fill us in a little bit more. How did this science of brain coding evolve?
Well, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is the most widely used personality assessment test. The military uses it a lot. Corporate America uses it a lot. It's been around for over 50 years. Probably the most validated and, significant research has been done using this instrument. So it's only been in the last couple of decades, however, as we've known more about the brain and we've been able to learn more about, what types of activities go on in the brain, that we can now take this science and apply it to sports performance, even physical fitness. A lot of the people that I see that are dealing with obesity or even, they just want to get on a good fitness program, people that are trying to find, something they can do consistently. Well, as soon as we know how you're wired physically and mentally, then we can even give you a very customized training plan that you'll more than likely stick to because it fits well with how you're wired both physically and mentally.
So you can custom design a plan for somebody that will make it easier for those people to stick to their fitness regime and help them along.
Right.
And it might become more enjoyable if it's custom built for the way their brain's wired. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think a lot of people have the mistaken notion that, well, I just got to join a gym and go to the gym to get fit. And, well, no, there's going to be people that fits for, but there's going to be a lot of people that will never set foot in a gym and aren't comfortable setting foot in a gym, there's just so many different ways that we can get fit and healthy, and some people need a community. Some people don't mind doing it alone because they're better at self-discipline than others. And some people require a team type situation and others don't. So it's different for each brain code.
So when we get back to the brain codes, Kip, and you talk about quarterbacks that are able to lead these NFL teams, leadership has to be a big role to be an NFL quarterback. Is there different brain codes that exhibit differently for other people's leadership abilities, or how does that work?
Yes, that's true. Most successful quarterbacks in the NFL are what we call extroverts. That's kind of where you innately get your energy from, either from extroversion or introversion. And most leaders are vocal leaders. They're extroverted. They're take-charge kind of people. And Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning have both leadership-type personalities. Actually, Ryan Leaf's zip code, brain code, would make an incredible GM-type person or even a director of pro personnel. He's a detail-oriented type of leader, a very results-oriented type of leader. And that, he gets a bad rap, and certainly, unfortunately, his life has kind of played that out, even in recent headlines, but he gets a bad rap for being, the biggest draft bust that there's been. But the fact is, he has a brain code that's an incredible leader and found very frequently in corporate America at a high level.
Well, what happened to him that he took this tragic turn? I mean, is there? Let me ask you a question, because especially playing in the NFL, let's say you're doing an assessment on an athlete, you're looking at their brain, and they get hit in the head once too many times. Does that have any effect on these brain codes?
Well, sure. We're learning more and more each day that the effects of concussions and multiple concussions and all that kind of stuff is having permanent damage, brain damage.
So it's very possible to be wired one way.
Brain scans from even 17-year-olds that have been playing football, and they're already showing signs of brain damage because of multiple hits taken to the head. And, no doubt about it, research has shown that former NFL players have a lower life expectancy than the general population. I think one research study done out of Canada was showing they have a 25% less life expectancy than the general population.
Well, we just lost a 50-year-old former NFL quarterback yesterday, so, 50 years old, and especially in today's society, is not that old.
No, it's not. That's young. That's way too young to lose somebody.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, definitely the NFL player's body goes through a beating that is second to none. So it's definitely possible.
I think Mook Williams may have joined us.
Mook, are you with us?
I have.
How about that? Ladies and gentlemen, joining us live on the phone from Boston, an agent, Mook Williams. Mook, how are you this evening?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on your show this evening.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you and Kip both. I really enjoy you guys coming to the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Mook, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're not that loud, but I can hear you enough to make you out.
Okay, see, Kip, he's a little closer. He's in Boston, you're in Texas. I mean, it's a shorter phone.
But I've known Mook for a while now, and he's a great agent. He's one of the best, and he knows all about this Neurosport stuff.
So,
Check's
Mook,
in the mail tomorrow, Kip.
How about that? Mook, tell us a little bit about what you're working on getting ready for the NFL draft, which just is a few weeks away, and what do you expect to do for your clients, and how have you used Neurosport to help your athletes?
Well, yeah, it's a hectic time period for us. I'll talk about Neurosport first. Started working with Kip a couple of years ago, and it was just by chance that we crossed paths, and I really liked the idea of what she was doing. I think it addressed an important part of professional athlete evaluation. You can have all the best tools in the world, as you were discussing about Ryan Leaf, but if things aren't right between the ears, they can all go to waste, and for NFL teams, that's a big money issue. So I recognize that, and I really like what Kip was doing, so we started off with a couple of athletes, kind of like a test situation, and I like the results there. There's many different personality types, and there's no guarantee that the client you represent is going to have an ideal personality type or one of the best personality types. But it's great either way. You either have an evaluation and you recognize that your client has an excellent personality type, excellent brain code for the NFL, or you find out that maybe we have to work with them on some things and have to adapt our style and market him a little bit differently and work internally and keep that report that identifies his brain code as not being ideal. Keep it internal, but use the process to help us and help the athlete and help him get through and still have a successful career. So one way or the other, I find Neurosport to be very helpful to what we do, what the agents do. And if it so happens that the athlete turns out to have one of those top brain codes, and what you do is, with the athlete's permission, you inform the teams in the league, some of them, all of them, whatever the situation is, whatever it dictates. But it can come in and it can really help a player's stock if you can market the brain code. And the report that Kip generates is very detailed. It's very long. It gives you a lot more than a Wonderlic test or a in-person interview that some random scout who's not trained in that discipline or doesn't have a degree in that discipline can do. So it pretty much blows all of that away, and gives a lot more insight into the player than a Wonderlic exam or an interview, and it can really affect the player's stock in a positive way if he has that type of brain code.
Well, let me just ask you a question. Before you started your own agency, which is called Symmetry, correct? Mook?
Correct.
You worked in the sports agent world
correct.
for a few years prior to that, and you've represented quite a few athletes. How many years ago was it that you started using these brain code tests to help your athlete negotiate a better contract?
Well, I think I started talking with Kip in
About
2009.
3 years ago. Yeah.
It was 2009, and I actually went through a similar process myself when I was with a law firm earlier that year in 2009, not with Kip, but with another firm, and it wasn't as involved of a process as Kip uses, but I undertook one of the exams that Kip uses, and I saw it personally. It opened my own eyes and enabled me to learn about myself, and there were things there that I always knew about my own personality and my own brain code, but I couldn't quite put my fingertip on it. But when I undertook the test and went through the evaluation period after that, I had my eyes open, and it really helped me out a lot from that point forward, just working, being a professional and handling my own personality and applying myself the best way possible. But yeah, it was back in 2009 that we started, and yeah, I've just seen a lot of benefits from it. I still think it's kind of in a new stage what Kip's doing. I don't think a lot of the league has adopted it yet, but it's coming around. And just talking with Kip, there's been more adoption of it. There's at least been more awareness of it, and I think that's only going to grow in future years. And I think you're going to see brain coding become more and more popular now as we go on through the years in the NFL, especially because the money is going to keep going higher and higher. There's a lot more money at stake. The big TV deals are going to kick in 2014, and it's going to be even more important to make sure you identify and spend your money on the right type of player if you're a team. And if that's the case, the stakes are raised. You better start looking at what's between the ears more and more, and not just the physical attributes. And you can't get a good perception of what's between the ears based on a scout's interview and a Wonderlic exam. It's impossible. So
I think we got Anthony Dorsett joining us on the telephone line here. Anthony, are you with us? Anthony Dorsett.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What the hell? What the hell are you doing, man?
How's everybody doing today?
We're doing fantastic. How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing good, man. I'm having a hard time hearing you on my end, though, so I don't know if it's just my bad connection or what.
Yeah, actually, once Anthony joined, I can barely hear you as well.
Yeah, I think Anthony. I don't know what's going on, but we're getting a lot of background noise from Anthony. Why don't you hang up, Anthony, and call us back?
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, do that. Because I tell you, something was going on there. We were getting a lot of. It sounded like he was standing next to the ocean, Kip. Was he?
You just got a lot louder, by the way, when he hung up.
Absolutely.
You need to rotate in and out.
Yeah, I heard the waves. So, Mook, back to what you're doing. You're one of the first guys that negotiated a contract under the new 2011 NFL collective bargaining agreement. You got your feet wet as one of the first sports agents to do that. Did you use any of this Neurosport thing to your advantage, trying to get a new contract with the new collective bargaining agreement?
Well, thus far we've only used it with draft class guys, and the way we use it to our advantage is if it comes out that if the report comes out that suggests that there's a great brain code for that player, then we will, with the player's permission, we will circulate the results, either all of them or some of them. We selectively did that a little bit with J.T. Thomas, not league-wide, but a little bit. And it didn't really come into play in a negotiation, but that's because the new CBA is very limited. It doesn't give much leeway in terms of how many dollars you can get for a rookie client. You're locked into a slot, and there's only a little bit of leeway in that slot. But yes, I could see this, as our adoption of Kip's service and other agents and other teams, as that increases, throughout the years. I could see this coming in when you're negotiating a veteran contract. Initially, a service like Kip's is used to just augment what's attempted to be done by the NFL teams in trying to learn about a player coming out of college. But, yes, I could see this being an effective tool if a big-time veteran contract comes up for negotiation and you're really stuck on a finer point. If that veteran has the type of brain code like a Peyton Manning or a Ray Lewis, and you can produce a report that's 100 pages long that details that brain code down to the finest point, and you put it on the GM's desk and say, hey, this is it. Look, not only we're talking about production, physical attributes, but look what he's dealing with mentally. I think that could be enough to put you over the top. So we haven't used it yet in terms of actual negotiation of a contract, but I could see that coming up in the future.
Kip, I heard a little chuckle come out of you when he mentioned Ray Lewis. Is there something you wanted to add?
Well, no, I think it's interesting the two people he mentioned, Peyton Manning and Ray Lewis, they actually have the same brain code. They play different positions, but they have the same brain code. And obviously both of them have had, long careers.
Longevity is the first thing I notice when you talk about those two guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the length of career is phenomenal, especially for a guy like Ray Lewis. I mean, he's been hitting people a long, long, long time. Hey, Mook, I got to ask you a question, man. I want to put you on the spot for a minute here, okay?
I'm used to it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Seeing how you're a sports agent, we had a guy here in Cleveland that is no longer with the Cleveland Browns by the name of Peyton Hillis. And Hillis just went through 3 or 4 agents over the last so many years. And
yep, I'm very familiar with it.
Right. Maybe you're a little bit familiar with the fact of Hillis missing the Miami game with a sore throat because his agent told him maybe he shouldn't play, he won't be 100% and he could get injured. What's your take on something like that, Mook?
Anthony?
Well, my take on in terms of a player being held out during a game during the season to create leverage, I'm not crazy about that practice. I can't say that we'd never do it, but you can't rule out a tactic or any tactic whatsoever. But I personally would not do that because that's a regular season game that counts in the standings. You have fans. You always have to keep the fans in mind. They are who drives the business. Without the fans, nobody's making any money, and the fans bought a ticket to see you play. So I would not be high on that tactic. I don't know the particulars of what went down in the Peyton Hillis situation. I don't know what his discussions were with his agent at the time. He's certainly been through a number of agents recently. Don't know exactly why the relationship's severed, but if that's true, if he really held himself out or the agent held him out, I would say would typically be a pretty poor tactic, and I don't think it worked in his advantage in hindsight now, that's for sure.
Well, obviously not, Mook. Maybe you could give a shout-out to Peyton and tell him your telephone number while you're on the air here. How somebody can...
I'm not a big fan of representing guys that have been through several agents. It's not a good sign.
Hey, we have a message here from Twitter. Twitter wants to know, Low Down Dirty Shock. That's Low Down Dirty Shock wants to know, who has a better brain code, Kip? The Browns owner, Lerner, or the Pittsburgh Steelers owner, Rooney?
I don't know. I can't intelligently speak to their brain codes as far as owners go. I know, I guess I'd have to go into the brain code vault here and see if either one of them are in the library or not. I know some owners are, but I haven't actually, that's not been a focus of my evaluation process. Although definitely owners, obviously, they're the top-down type of guys, influence the kind of coaches and therefore the kind of players that the team invests in.
Kip, maybe you could encourage the league to brain code all new incoming owners.
Right, yeah.
Well, let's not forget, the Rooneys have decades of experience, and Al Lerner is basically new. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another break here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show, about 1 minute and 30 seconds. When we come back, joining in on the conversation, I believe we will have Anthony Dorsett Jr. Stick with us right here on StreamingSportsTalk.com. 1 minute and 30 seconds. We'll be back with Brain Codes.
On the line?
Yeah, but this is going to be background noise.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Live on the phone with us tonight, Kip Watson, owner of Neurosports. Mook Williams, one of the most ethical sports agents in the history of sports agents, live from Boston. And Anthony Dorsett, if we can get through to him without the background noise coming up. Anthony, what the hell you been doing today, man? Tell us about it.
Man, I'm outside working with athletes as we speak. I'm going to be, that's why I have so much background noise. I'm trying to get in the corner here where the wind isn't blowing because I'm actually outside. So, I was hoping that it wouldn't be this loud, you know, I wouldn't have this much noise around me, but, it's looking like my connection is not going to be too good. So, what I really wanted to do is I wanted to come on and say hello, and then, you know, it seems like Kip and Mook got it under control, so I was just going to say, what's up to you, my man, and say hello to all the listeners out there. And hopefully I'll be able to get back on here next week, if not sooner.
That'd be great, man. We're looking forward to talking to you, Anthony. I'd really like to get back into this NFL bounty thing and a little bit of talk of Greg Williams. I know you played under him for a few years, and I think our viewers would be loving to hear what you have to say about what's happening with Greg Williams and the NFL bounties.
Well, you got my word, brother. Whenever you're ready to do it, you got me. So just let me know when you want to do it. Let's schedule it. Let's make it happen.
I'll give you a call next week. Let's shoot for next Monday night, man.
All right, let's do it. Thanks a lot for having me again.
All right, man.
Kip and Mook, go ahead and knock it out the box.
All right, thanks, Anthony.
We got you, Anthony.
Ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Dorsett. He's busy right now training athletes, getting them ready for some sort of competition. That's what Neurosport is all about. It's athletic training.
Check out that picture you just loaded of him.
Of Anthony Dorsett? Yeah, that's my man Kenyon back there working on. Hey, Mook, let me ask you a question, because Kenyon always wanted to be a sports agent. How do you get into the sports agent business, man?
Well, you broke up on me there, but I think you asked me how do you break in to be a sports agent? Is that what you asked?
That is correct.
Okay, sorry. I'm on a landline, but for some reason it broke up.
Well, satellites and everything else.
There's no patented way to break in. I mean, there's a few different ways. One way would be to go intern for an established agent and hopefully catch on that way and get some experience that way. Another way, which is the way I did it, would be just start from scratch, and that was certainly challenging and still is. It still is a challenge. And a third way, the easiest way, is to have a roommate or a family member or a good friend just happen to be a high-round NFL prospect. So the third way is easy. The first two ways are the most common ways, and there's no real patented way to do it. You need to be able to sacrifice a lot of time. You need to be able to work a couple of years without making much revenue in that endeavor. Make sure you have something else that's going on in your life. And you need to be able to work around the clock, never take no for an answer, be a people person, and capitalize on opportunities. And you'd better know the CBA and everything about whatever sport you're getting into like the back of your hand, because you will be exposed if you don't know it as well as you should. So it's a challenge. A former player definitely has a little bit of an advantage in that they will already know people in the business. So
well, you played a little football down in.
Anybody else wanted to try it? They would have a little bit of a jump start, but you have to know the business well. You have to take advantage of opportunity, and you have to be prepared to grind without any immediate payoff.
Mook, I got to ask you this, man. Have you given any college players money for tattoos?
No, I haven't. I don't have any tattoos myself, and I've never even bought a guy a cup of coffee in my career, and it's going to stay that way.
I just had to ask that question, man. Thanks.
I just got.
Hey, with so many boosters buying tattoos, agents don't have to do it.
I just got done saying Mook was one of the most ethical agents in the business, Kenyon. He's not going to. You know, Kenyon's getting flashbacks from Ohio State. That's what's going on down here, Mook.
No, I'm just thinking if I was an athlete, I would want an agent to buy me a tattoo.
Well, then you're not going to have this guy
There's plenty of other guys that would do that. I would not be one of them, but there's plenty of others in the business. I can give you about 40 phone numbers when we get off the line.
I'll wait for that. Okay, thanks.
So, Kip, back to some of these kids that Anthony Dorsett's training. What particularly is he trying to do with these children? I mean, you guys start with athletes. Give us a breakdown all the way down to what age?
Oh, goodness. We have young kids that are in Pee Wee football that we've worked with through, the local football league here. Both of us have coached in the local league, and then through Zoom Sports, where we've trained at, we do agility training, speed training, all that kind of stuff, and position work. Anthony does a lot of position work with the kids who may be working, as a defensive back, since obviously that's the position he played and knows as well.
That must be a real treat for a kid that's in Pee Wee football to have a personal trainer by the name of Anthony Dorsett Jr. or even Kip Watson, who won a Super Bowl ring as a professional female football player. I mean, it's got to be a treat to these children to go out and see guys and gals like you coming out and helping train them. I've
had a few heads turn, especially with parents when they see a female football coach out there, but I'm kind of, my kids will attest to this. Even when I have them under my training, they know the difference between mom and then Coach Kip, because when it's Coach Kip, I'm all about business. And even at the young ages of, we get the little farts, the little 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, we really begin teaching them the concepts of team and what you do as a team. And so even in the drills, at that young age, if one person messes up, well then everybody gets to do 5 push-ups, So it's learning those types of things, because that's a mental skill as well as a physical skill that you're teaching a young kid.
Now, Mook, this has to fit right up in your alley. I mean, come on, man. She's out there training 5- and 6-year-old athletes. You got professional people like Anthony Dorsett working with them. You can follow these careers all the way through college, and they should be lining up at your front door getting ready to sign with you. How does that fit into your plan?
Yeah, I can get some very early intel in on the Dallas area football players. Very when they're at a very young age, I'll know exactly who to pinpoint when they get into college. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, it's like having your own farm of growing these athletes that are going to be groomed, ready to go into the NFL one day. I mean, how can you miss with now, Kip? Do you do any mental grooming with these young minds, or what? How does that work?
Yeah, like I said, a lot of times you can work a mental skill at the same time you're teaching them a physical skill, whether that's focus and concentration, being a team player, setting goals. A lot of times just the aspect of setting goals, there are certain brain codes that's sort of innately part of who they are, and then others it's not. But that's obviously a mental skill that's really required to achieve anything in life, on and off the field.
All right, Mook, this is Kenyon, man. I got another question for you.
Sure.
It was said, during the Cleveland Browns recruit of Robert Griffin III, speculation came out that a lot of players that's coming in the NFL draft this year basically told their agent, they spoke to their agent that Cleveland Browns do not draft me because we're going to hold out. We basically don't want to play for your sucky team. If you have a player that may be a highly drafted pick and he comes at you saying that he doesn't want to play with a particular team, how do you handle that move?
Well, I work at the behest of the client. So if the client is really strongly opposed to playing for a certain team, and if he's a high-round guy where you have some control over it, because you could have a second rounder down the seventh rounder not want to play for a team, and your ability to control that process is minimized by the fact that this isn't a high profile player. But let's just say we're dealing with a high round guy and he doesn't want to play for a team, although that almost offends my own sensibilities and my own moral code. If that's what he really wants to do in terms of avoid a team, I have to figure out a way to tactfully do it. I don't think the way to do it is to make it public knowledge, however, like what happened with Eli Manning, for example. I wouldn't go out there and make it public unless that was the very last resort. I would work behind the scenes through relationships, even with the team itself, and say, look, you're going to have a problem if you take my player here. You might want to look elsewhere. I don't think it's the classy or professional thing to do to make it public knowledge that a client does not want to play for a team, unless that is the very last resort. So, each situation is different. There's so many different personalities from team to team. Many of these NFL teams operate differently. They have their own preferences. Different people are in charge. You got to push different buttons with different decision makers. It never gets boring in my shoes, but yeah, if I had that situation, hey, I work at the behest of the client, and I would try to talk him out of that position. But if he didn't get out of that position, I would work behind the scenes, dealing with the people I know the best on the team, and hope to communicate that to them that we're dead serious. And that we don't want to play for you. I hope to never be in that position, though.
Now, Mook, let me ask you, with all this NFL bounty stuff going on right now, do you represent any athletes that may have been involved in something that could be facing a suspension coming down from Roger Goodell?
No one on the Saints, and I'm not aware of any investigation into other teams. But this is something that's pretty common. I think when you get Anthony on next week, you'll hear that it's something that's pretty common. Although I think the blatant nature of the way that what happened with the Saints that may have gone a little farther than it normally goes. But no, I don't have any guys involved either way. I'm aware of some potential lawsuits brewing from certain players who may sue either the NFL, the Saints, or the given player on the Saints, alleging that significant injury occurred, possibly because of the bounty situation. I'm also a lawyer. I don't know how, without seeing a specific lawsuit, I don't know how effective of a suit that would be, what the chances would be of winning, but you're not going to hear the end of this one for a long time.
Yeah, that's it.
I've heard the same rumblings among players who have been, on the receiving end of that.
Well, Mook, I got to tell you, it's about that time where we're going to be exiting from the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Mook, it's been a pleasure to have you, and let's give a shout-out. Tell our listeners, if they're looking for an agent, you never know who's watching the Cleveland Sports 360 show, how do they get a hold of Mook Williams?
Well, you can check out our agency's website. Our agency is called Symmetry, SYMMETRY, reps, REPS.com. That's symmetryreps.com. You can also follow me on Twitter. It's simply Mook Williams, which is M-O-O-K, Williams, one word, and you can also search for me on Facebook there. You'll find our phone number on the website. There's a way to email us as well. You can tweet at me. You can message me on Facebook. I'm not hard to find, and it's always surprising who contacts me every week. Never a boring moment in this industry. I appreciate you having me on, and any other time you need me on in the future, I'll be very happy to come back.
Well, I'll be calling you real soon, Mook, because I'm probably going to need an entertainment lawyer, and I know you have a lot of background in that. So
yeah,
I want to sue Kenyon, man.
Well,
hey, it's been my pleasure to have you on, man. It was a real treat, and we'll get back to you sooner or later, I'm sure. And if you got any big draft guys, let us know what happens after the draft. I'd really appreciate it, okay?
I will. We got some good players in this year's class, and I'll be happy to talk to you about them later.
That'd be fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mook Williams, all the way from Boston. We still have on the phone lines with us Kip Watson, owner of Neurosport. Kip?
Yes.
Tell our viewers how they can get a hold of you and Anthony Dorsett, who works with you at Neurosport.
Yes, you can reach us. You can check out our website, which is neurosportathlete.com. That's NEUROSPORT athlete.com. My email is simply kip@neurosportathlete.com. I'm also on Twitter at KipFit, KIPFIT. I'm on Facebook. Anthony's on Twitter at Dorsett Jr. And you can reach us that way. We're pretty easily found on social media, the both of us. So.
One more question. I just want to hear the answer one more time for our Cleveland viewers, Kip. Colt McCoy does have a brain code and can be a winner for the Cleveland Browns. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Kip Watson, live from Texas, from Neurosport. Kip, thank you so much for joining the Cleveland Sports 360 show. It's been a pleasure to have you. We look forward to talking to you again. Ladies and gentlemen, good night. We love you. We'll see you next week right here on StreamingSportsTalk.com with more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Don't forget my main man back there, Kenyon Johnson, 3 days a week, 4 to 5, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Sportsmanlike Conduct with Kenya Huff, Gossip and Stuff. Who is it, Kenyon? It's Kenya Huff with Gossip and Stuff.
All I know is she got 2 great Easter baskets in front of her.
I love it, baby. And you should see her eat an ice cream cone. We'll see you next week. God bless and be good, people.